I want to start this video by saying that none of the Yakuza games are flat out perfect. Zero has not the best skill tree and some weird story moments. Like a Dragon's JRPG gameplay is rudimentary compared to its contemporaries, Infinite Wealth is often considered an upgrade in gameplay and a downgrade in story compared to 7, and I'd mostly agree. The point is, every single one of these games, even the most often considered S-tier entries, have flaws. On the other side of the coin, I'm of the semi-popular opinion that the least fun Yakuza game in the mainline series is still an 8. And despite the development team's reputation for reusing assets between releases, each game has something totally unique about it, meaning you're really missing out if you skip any of them. Really, each and every game in the series is above a certain level of quality in my eyes. Which begs the question, why do Yakuza fans love to shit on like every game in the series? Now, obviously, if you know anything about the online Yakuza community, you know about half of the discourse consists of shit posting, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Because of this, you might be thinking, oh, people just joke about the games being bad, but that's not always true. There's genuinely a pretty decent sized section of the community that just seems to hate most of the games. I mean, just look at what some of these games have been reduced to over the years. Yakuza 3 is Blockuza, Yakuza 4's story is trash, Yakuza 6 and Gaiden are too short, Yakuza 5 is too long and winded. Okay, that one's true. But I feel like any true fan of this series can appreciate aspects of all the Yakuza games. One thing I keep hearing that's crazy to me is that Infinite Wealth is bad for no other reason than the game making you play Dondoko Island for 20 minutes and that the ending's bad. And I'll be the first to say, I agree that forcing the player to spend 20 minutes in Dondoko Island is a little annoying for repeat playthroughs, and locking New Game Plus behind a paywall is a garbage move on Sega's part. I'll also concede that this is a purposeful underselling of all the side content Infinite Wealth makes you do to progress the main story. But acting like a game as incredibly large and full of good content as Infinite Wealth is flat out bad, or an overall disappointment because of little nitpicks like this is just silly to me. Infinite Wealth is one of the most dense games I've ever played, and damn near all of it is quality. I've even seen some people complain about Kiryu's bucket list and lifelink stuff, which is just so wild to me. People have been basically begging RGG for years for them to acknowledge Kiryu's past and some of the characters that got swept under the rug in a new game, and though it's not perfect, when they actually did, people still found a way to complain about it. Sometimes it really does feel like it's impossible for RGG to appease these kinds of fans' expectations. I'm not saying it couldn't have been better, but I think the point still stands. When it comes to story, it's all subjective, but I do think it's funny how some people harp on and on about games like Yakuza 4 and Infinite Wealth having terrible stories, and these are the same people who will turn around and tell you that Yakuza 0 is absolutely flawless, despite it having story flaws of its own. Specifically with barely mentioning characters like Yumi and Kazuma. I'm not trying to say Yakuza 0 isn't a masterpiece, we all know it is. I'm just saying either hold these games all to the same standard, admit they're all pretty solid, or admit you haven't actually played all of them. I just recently played the entire series, every mainline title back to back, starting with 0 as many fans have. And the only time I felt even a little bit of burnout and took a small break was with Yakuza 5. Now, I love Yakuza 5 and think it does a lot of things right, but anyone who's beaten it probably knows exactly why this was the only point in the series I felt kind of bored/frustrated. That being said, I'm not yelling from the rooftops about how terrible the game is, because I mean, it has some definite high points. I understand people having their issues with these titles, I really do, and I'm not trying to say they're all holy pieces of art that can't possibly be criticized. I just think that RGG deserves credit for consistently giving us good titles for 20 years, and we could all stand to let ourselves just enjoy these games more. Don't like Yakuza 3's combat? Play on easy. Don't like Yakuza 4's story? Skip the cutscenes. Don't like Yakuza 0's combat or story? Go away and play Elden Ring or something, I don't know. Do I think you should really do these things? No, I think Yakuza 3's gameplay is fine, and 4's story is wildly overhated with some genuinely great moments. But I feel like many of the fans of the series make up their minds on certain entries with little to no nuance, or maybe sometimes even too much nuance. In all seriousness, some people just don't like certain games in the series, and that's totally fine. I think the real frustration I'm feeling came from me beating the games one at a time searching the entry on Reddit to see what people thought, or watching a YouTube review or something, and just about every single game without fail having quite a lot of negative things said about it. It was at this point when I asked myself the question, do Yakuza fans even like the Yakuza series? I know that sounds insane, but I mean seriously, think about the amount of games in the series that aren't considered at least slightly polarizing by the community. I can literally only think of one. It would be one thing if the Yakuza series was like the Sonic series or something, which is remembered for having large stretches of time consisting of mediocre releases, but it's really not. Every single game in the series has reviewed fairly well since its inception, and for the most part, the fans of these games seem to genuinely be obsessed with the series. So I guess I'm just curious where the strong negative opinions about literally most of the games in the series comes from. Now, we should all be able to criticize something we like, and no game is completely perfect. But why are we nitpicking every Yakuza game so hard when they all fall victim to the same tropes? An example of this is how everyone talks about the rubber bullets in 4. And yeah, while it's kinda stupid, I want you to remember that the whole series is kinda stupid. It's one of the things that makes it great. Since when do we care about realism or stupid plot retcons in our goofy shirtless man karaoke simulator games? I know by saying that joke it seems like I'm downplaying the genuinely fantastic stories that most of these games have, but the balance of Japanese action B-movie camp and legitimately wholesome or crushing moments is one of the things that makes this such a great series. And it's something that every single game in the mainline series has, by the way. Even the PS2 titles. Taking the plots in these games too seriously is, in my opinion, detrimental to your enjoyment of them. Yes, the plots can get quite serious, but what's most important to me in the series is its blend of heart, action, and comedy. And if you haven't played all of them, or are avoiding certain titles because you heard they're bad from some guy on Reddit, I urge you to reconsider. I hate when I read about people skipping titles in the series because they heard 3 had bad combat, or they're used to the Dragon Engine after Kiwami 2. Just give it a shot. And remember at the end of the day that every mainline Yakuza game is peak. This was my first video on the Like a Dragon series. If there's any interest, I'm super open to the idea of making a big, gigantic, full series retrospective video, as I've just played all of them and they're super fresh in my mind. So please let me know in the comments if that's something you'd consider tuning in for. Thanks for watching.